Welcome to the Dietitian Health Career Success Show. I'm your host, Stacey Dunn-Emke. I run NutritionJobs.com, ExerciseJobs.com, and DietitianSalaries.com. NutritionJobs, as you know, is your premier and trusted source of dietitian jobs and career advancement resources. We have over 1,000 jobs, you guys, right now on NutritionJobs.com. You can also create a resume profile and employers will be able to find you. All right, so you've heard about community nutrition programs. For me, that was something I was involved with and engaged with and knew all about in my dietetic internship. Fast forward to today, they have gotten a glow up. Community nutrition programs are a whole lot different than what you might be thinking, and they are an excellent way for you to reach people in your community, provide service, and also build your private practice or as a side hustle or a side gig. Today, I've got two very special dietitian guests who are going to share their experience in this space and tell you how to do this. So today, we are featuring the expertise of Elisa England and Ellen Petrosino of the Nourish and Thrive Nutrition Center. Hi guys, how are you?
Hi, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to have you guys briefly introduce yourselves. Ellen, can you tell us a little bit about like where are you at right now and maybe a little bit about your background in dietetics? Just a few words.
Sure, a few words. I'm a second career dietitian. I became a dietitian at the age of 51. I was in nonprofit research, communications work for nonprofit research foundations, and segueing into dietetics was the perfect segue. Like I talk to people every day about here's the research, but here's hands-on, like how we can make this work in your life. So I opened my practice in 2017, and I currently do one-on-one nutrition counseling in Warren, New Jersey. I accept insurance, and together with Elisa, which we'll talk about, we also have co-founded something called the Nourish and Thrive Nutrition Center. And with that, we go out into the community and we do some culinary nutrition education.
Can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I became a registered dietitian in 2013, and I feel like I lived 12 lives between then and now. I started out in the inpatient world. I was working as a cardiovascular ICU dietitian, an oncology dietitian. While working part-time, I dabbled in corporate wellness as well. So I worked as a contractor for J&J, started my side hustle in private practice, and then I made the leap full-time to get out of the clinical space and did a very short stint in medical sales for a little bit, realized that was not for me. And then I pivoted to working with a food service company for about a year. That was also a corporate wellness dietitian at Blue Cross Blue Shield. Then got married and really, really made the dive into private practice full time. Then the world shut down, and we all know how that went. But then Ellen and I reconnected in 2022 and created the Nourish and Thrive Nutrition Center. So I also have my private practice located. That's where I am today, here at the Nourish and Thrive Nutrition Center. I also am a provider for most major health insurance plans. And along with Ellen, we love the work that we're doing in the community as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I'm going to go back to your experience in medical sales. I have to say, I'm sure while that may not have been like your dream job, I imagine you got a lot of amazing skills from that experience that are sort of transferable to now what you're doing. So I'm going to ask you more about that a little bit later, but I'm very interested and the idea that the two of you have come together both in your private practices and come together to create something. You've collaborated. I think that's very unique. So how did you guys decide to work together?
Well, our cute meet story was because I was a second career dietitian. As I was going through my rotations in clinical, Elisa was one of my preceptors. And we just connected right off the bat. I think in dietetics, like when you surround yourself with people that inspire you and motivate you, you collect them like beads on a necklace, right? So I always wanted to keep her in my life. And after I became a dietitian and we both had our private practices, we came together and we started doing some community nutrition education together. And then when COVID came and our practices shut down and we all did telehealth from home, Elisa and I miss that collaboration of working together, being together, bouncing ideas off of each other. And that's kind of where the Nourish and Thrive Nutrition Center was born. So we wanted to protect our private practices. We worked really hard to build those private practices. So we reimagined what it could look like. And we decided that we would each operate in an office suite together, almost like a suite of doctors, where she has her practice and I have my practice. We have our own patient list, we accept insurance, but then under the umbrella of Nourish and Thrive Nutrition Center, together we go out as a team, as the dietitians of the center, and we work with health departments and school systems and local libraries to help our community, because we really want access to the community for information. We want to help our community build their, we call it culinary confidence. Most people know they need to eat more broccoli and maybe less fast food. They don't know how. They don't know how to shop for it. They're afraid to spend their money on it. Cooking skills can be low. They don't know what to do with the food once they've made it, like how to reinvent it as leftovers. And that's where we come in, and we are very effective at like meeting people where they're at and listening to them and being just being a presence in our community. So that's kind of how it works, the overarching structure of it. And Nourish and Thrive has really taken off in the past couple of years. We didn't really expect it to take off, but the community nutrition aspect that we'll be talking about really, there's a need for it right now.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's great that you highlighted all the success that can happen when dietitians are collaborating. I think sometimes you think like, oh, you're both in the same sector, you're both in the same geography, actually in the same location, that there might be some competition for the growth of your business. But I think what you're showing is that's not true. There's abundance, just like there's a lot of jobs out there. There are a lot of patients, a lot of people in the community who need our services. And by collaborating, it can just sort of build synergistically into something even greater. So I'm very curious. So you talk about this community nutrition program. Can you just give us a big overview of what are the actual services that you guys are providing? So you're providing like presentations? Is it like corporate wellness where you're doing in-person presentations? Maybe just give me a sense of what that looks like.
Elise, you want to take that?
Absolutely. So our offerings through the Nourish and Thrive Nutrition Center, we've created what we have coined our menu of services. So our main, I would say, flagship of what we do offer is culinary nutrition education programs. We offer those both in person and virtually. So what that looks like is about a 90-minute presentation where we are presenting on some particular topic, whether one of our community partners is really interested, say a senior center wants a program on Table for One, right, or budget-friendly meals. We have about 40 minutes of information, making it very interactive. And then I pass that baton over to Ellen, and she is showing folks, what to shop for, the grocery shopping list, different products, and she's showing them live or virtually to really yummy recipes from start to finish, showing people and really driving the behavior change model, right? Instead of just information dissemination. So that's really our bread and butter. Now, over time, we have also found different ways to reach out to our community members. For example, do they want our community partners say, hey, can we do a email series, for example, right? So we're offering them different recipe packs and resources for their community members, or even a variety of different what we call resource bundles, which is great as well, which is just, little tidbits or being part of, for example, an email blast where there's a wellness corner and there's dietitian representation. So just these different ways of being that go-to expert in the community. And what the really fun part of it, Stacey, is there's really no limit, right? We get to really invent what this looks like or collaborate with our partners to say, what is the need in your community and how can we fill it?
I love that. That's really interesting. So what I'm hearing is these are all group programs, right? I guess that's what community means, right? These are group. You're not providing one-on-one nutrition counseling. Is that right?
So that's a good delineator. So in our private practices, we are doing medical nutrition therapy, right? We're doing insurance, reimbursement. We're doing one-on-one counseling. we very much try to distinguish. Nourish and Thrive is not medical nutrition oriented, it's culinary oriented. So we're very careful when we're creating our content or our emails, to our newsletter to our clients, that we're focusing on the culinary, like what foods to shop for, what's in season, what things go together, how to make sheet pan meals, because that is a whole different aspect of nutrition that's a barrier for many people besides information.
I love that. Okay, I think that sort of clarifies the difference then between the two. And that might also explain a little bit different ways that you can capture revenue. So would you guys be comfortable sharing a little bit about how are you making money doing this? Not in your private practice. I think that's pretty clear to most people. But in this community nutrition program, how is it that you are generating revenue?
Yes,
or
absolutely.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that question, Ellen. So with just that, going over that background that I had started out sharing, where I was juggling so many different positions, so many different roles, and a lot of different income streams from the get-go, it was very mentally helpful for me to have that stimulation from those different roles and the different work that I was completing. But it also really served somewhat as a buffer to have these different opportunities to fall back on in case the job didn't work out, or I was able to, say, dial up one time spent in one area that I was really enjoying, or dial down in another area, right? I loved having those options. So now that Ellen and I are kind of these multi-business owners, right? We have our private practices, we have our community practice. We've created this similar model for ourselves that allows us to kind of pick and choose what we want to dial up and dial down. So as private practice dietitians, our primary focus and our primary means of bringing in that income is filling our one-to-one calendars, right? The counseling is the crux of that as our top revenue stream. But as Ellen and I started to really develop what the Nourish and Thrive Nutrition Center was and started envisioning these additional income generators, we found that not only were we able to make money off of, the programs that we're doing in the community, that's also funneling into our one-to-one businesses and our private practices, right? Here we're standing in front of this wonderful group of folks, and we say at the end, by the way, we're providers for most major health insurance plans. Here's our information, call the center. So it's multifaceted. You're making money through the actual programs that you're running in the community, but it's also acting as this opportunity for that one-to-one build into private practice. I will say too, in 24 and 25 is where we were really establishing ourselves as those go-to experts. That's where we were really ramping up our paid for community events. And then from there, you have this wonderful audience, right? You have this email list that you've grown. And we asked ourselves, well, how are some other ways that we could be making revenue from this audience that we've created? So then we sprouted the idea of, let's build some virtual self-paced programs. Let's create some content bundles for people to purchase. And then finally, this year is when we had the idea to really create more of a business-to-business model, supporting dietitians, which we'll certainly talk more about, I'm sure, the community dietitian framework in a bit. But as you see, there's multiple opportunities to bring income in.
This is genius, right? Like, so you're out in the community, you're providing a service, you might get a fee for that, but you're also doing lead generation, just like you would in any other business, right? You're looking for leads, you're looking for how you can get referrals. And I think this is genius. It really covers a lot of ground. Can you tell us a little bit more then who's the major client? When you're going out to the community, you're tapping into somebody else's audience. And let's say, for example, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you can tap into maybe a library, like the local library, they might have an email list and they advertise that you're coming in on this day and people can come and learn, and then you can contact them that way. So would the library then be somebody who would then pay for your services? Do they have a budget for that?
Right. We even went bigger. We went to the local health departments. In New Jersey, there are different counties with different health departments, and each health department really feeds out into senior centers, into libraries, into school systems. So we really started with health departments who do have, up until last year, they had more grant money, but they do have budgeted grants for wellness, and even their own employees, they were looking for wellness programs. So we have a lot of relationships with different health departments, and we have contracts with them.
Oh,
and then
fantastic.
through that, they're also saying, well, this library in this town needs something, and that senior center in that town needs something, and we get paid for all of those events. We're very upfront and transparent about, we provide very high quality programming, and that comes at a cost, right? Because we want to be paid what we're worth. All dietitians should be paid what we're worth. We go through a lot of training to do what we do. And then generally that leads down the road to, I saw you at that library. Would you come speak to our superintendent of our school system? And would you come into our school system? So it starts to snowball, but generally we've started with the health departments and their grant funding.
Okay, that's genius. I love that. So going into the health department. So if a dietitian, we could talk a little bit more about your program and how other dietitians can adopt this and take this on themselves. But how do you know, what's your first step in contacting a local, let's say you move to a new town and you're not sure where that health department is. Do you look on LinkedIn? Do you look in, do you Google? Like, how do you know who to contact first?
It's a great question. So it depends on where you are, in the country. But what's really neat is, now with the use of social media and Facebook and all these Facebook groups and whatnot, I feel, and everybody having somewhat of an online presence, right? Just doing a quick Google search in your immediate, say, 10-mile radius, right? Whereas the health department, what are some local gyms? What's around me? And then starting to just figure out who is the point person that would be the best to connect with, that would be really open to wellness types of programs, right? And establishing who that point person is. But yeah, just really kind of boots on the ground and seeing what's available to you.
That's good. That's good.
I know this is crazy, but a lot of times it starts with a phone call. Like, yeah. I don't know that people turn to that as often. It's calling the health department, I'm a registered dietitian. I would really love to talk to somebody there about nutrition programming. Who would be the best person to speak to? So it's just like starting like that, very simply like that.
I think that keyword, nutrition programming, I think that's the cue that can help you sort of move to the next phase or the next place or the next contact. Like, is it HR or is it employee benefits? Like, depending on how big the company is or small the company is or the facility. I think that's the key word, the nutrition programming. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
And our credential is also a key door opener, to tell you the truth. We're somebody who has a known standard of education. And when a health department hears registered dietitian, they want to talk to you.
They know what that is. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay. All right. I'm so very curious. I'm just imagining you guys are both entrepreneurs. Congratulations. You are juggling a lot. You've got your private practice. You are marketing for your services. You're delivering your community nutrition services. There's a lot going on. Is there any way you can sort of give us a sense or distill down what a day in a life looks like for you? It doesn't have to be an actual day, but like, what does that look like? Maybe Elisa, you can chime in.
Sure. I mean, I will say there is the word to describe what a day looks like is a ton of pivoting. I really, truly, a lot of pivoting, right? So we switch from motivational interviewing in our one-to-one sessions, and then we're putting on our business hats and we're discussing proposals that need to go out, right, to community partners, new connections that we can leverage. So in between, it's funny, Ellen and I will have our 50-minute sessions, and then it's like, hey, I have 15 minutes. Do you want to get together and crank out a couple emails? So there is really, truly, no one day is the same. But we do really try to even have a marketing day, right? Where it's just like we dedicate a certain day of the month where we're just getting organized and saying what's coming up, right? Calendar events. February is Heart Health Month. May is National Osteoporosis Awareness Month. So how can we leverage our programs, or what are our email campaigns look like? We also do take on dietetic interns. So sometimes we're wearing the preceptor hat and we're saying, okay, we have an intern with us. What are their tasks? So last summer, we took a new leap and we took all of our experiences and we just put everything again into our framework, because we said, if so many dietitians are doing this, right? Whether we're solopreneurs, we're looking to get into the community, and we said, how can we create a framework for this type of work in particular to help other dietitians get a grasp of what this could potentially look like? But is there anything else, Ellen, that you would add to our day-to-day?
Oh, no, I think that's it. Today's a very typical day, right? We each did counseling in the morning, then we had some business meetings in the afternoon. Now we're guests on this podcast, and then we're going to go right back. We're going to pivot right back into counseling after this is over. And it makes it really fun. I have to say, the changing up of it constantly creates a lot of opportunities to use different parts of your brain, and it's very stimulating.
I like that you mentioned the pivoting. I think that's the transitions, the pivoting when you're a solopreneur or entrepreneur or working together with other people, that's a really important key, but also being able to take the time to sit down quietly and do that planning, looking at the month, looking at the week, and seeing what's out there and how you can make sure that you are planned as opposed to just jumping into things randomly. I think that's really helpful. I'm very curious about how you guys do your marketing. So you mentioned you spend some time marketing. How are you actually marketing these days? I know everyone has a different system, whether it's weekly emails or whatever it might be on social media. So how do you guys market your community nutrition services?
Sure. Ellen, do you want me to take that one?
You take that. I call Lisa our Chief Marketing Officer.
So when I did my 6 months in medical sales, Stacey, like you said, there were some really key things that I learned in that very short amount of time. And one of my biggest, I'll call it sales 101 takeaways, was that sales is really an old fashioned like that. The key is boots on the ground relationship building, right? We could all be selling the same exact thing, but what makes the difference is the relationship we build and that know, like, and trust factor from our audience, or in this case, our prospective partners, right? Because we're trying to get our programs paid for. So how are we building those relationships with the health departments, with the libraries, with the senior centers? And as you might see, Ellen and I don't have this huge, massive social media presence. So in 2026, what does marketing look like if you don't have a big market or social media presence? And it really is the relationship building. So a lot of the relationships that we have right now have actually snowballed from other relationships. It's that word of mouth. Hey, the dietitians at the Nourish and Thrive Nutrition Center did a great program here at the library. Oh, I'm going to connect you with a library in this town or that town. So it really is truly just getting out there and just letting people know what you do, right? Because as dietitians, we know what we do, right? We know it's osteoporosis month coming up in May, but the library doesn't unless you tell them, hey, we created this really awesome bone health presentation. Do you think that there would be interest in your community? And just putting it out there, right? So it really is finding your contact person, creating that relationship, seeing the value of your programs, and then keep going with adding more and more value. One more really quick thing that I will say on this, Ellen makes fun of me, but at the end of every presentation that we do, I go up to our community partner and I say, this was wonderful. Hey, what do you think in a couple of months? We have this program. Do you think, right? So you're continuing that conversation. It's not just a one-time, one-off. You're continuing the conversation to say, this is what we have for you in addition to what we've done.
That's super valuable. I think that's really great for people to hear again, that follow-up is what the consumer or the customer wants, your client wants. They want to be handheld through the next phase or to the next step. And so I think that's a great observation about how to be successful in continuing the business. I think it's one thing to have a really great program. You spend a lot of time and energy. It's exhausting doing these programs, and to not just like pack it up and get back into your car and try to hit the road again the next day, but to have that system in place for the follow-up. I think it's really helpful. So I think both of you, what I've noticed is that you guys have these great personalities. People, I'm sure, are very drawn to the content that you're delivering. Maybe Ellen, can you speak a little bit about maybe a handful of skills that you know that you were born with that have made you successful doing this and that you've learned along the way? Can you share some of those with us?
Oh, sure. Yes, I'd love to. Born with. I am actually an introvert. I have learned to be more extroverted when doing these things. But I think what Elisa and I were both born with is that sense of empathy and connection to people. And we laugh because we have a fan base in our community that come to follow us to all of our presentations, because I feel like they feel that connection. They feel like we're hearing where they're at, we're listening to their pain points, and we are also open to their experiences during the presentations. Our presentations are very interactive. So I think as dietitians, like that really helps us in this community nutrition aspect. Also, the skills that we as dietitians have in motivational interviewing. A lot of dietitians use that in private practice. What I've learned is the power of using motivational interviewing outside of counseling sessions when we're talking to people who could potentially be our partners.
Oh,
and instead of approaching them, instead of approaching them from, this is a program I have, what do you think? We always open the conversation with, oh, tell us about who you are, who you serve. Tell us about what you've done in the past. Tell us about your programming gaps. What's your pain point in your community? And we listen to everything first, and we ask lots of follow-up questions. And then after that, we can then position ourselves as saying, we have this great program that may work really well with what you're talking about. Maybe we can help you fill those gaps or meet those needs. And then it becomes more of a collaborative relationship versus a sales relationship. And then it begins to grow naturally like that. So I think that motivational interviewing skill, very key. And I'm going to add one more, because we learned everything about the human body in dietetics. We didn't learn how to be good business women, right? We didn't get business 101. And learning how and when to talk to our potential partners about money, about how much we're charging, about how much that program would cost, about just any of the details of business, that has been a skill that has been slowly growing and we're becoming much more confident with. And I think it's very important for all of us as dietitians to just start getting outside of our comfort zone and start practice. Comes with practicing those skills.
Ellen, that's really helpful. I think going back to what you originally said about being an introvert, and I think that gives hope to a lot of people who are thinking, this community nutrition program, you're out there getting referrals. It feels like a lot of energy. It feels like something maybe I can't do. And I love that you offered that. And I do know that that's very helpful for a lot of people. So thank you for sharing that. Elisa, some skills that you were born with and those that you have learned along the way.
Yeah, definitely. So a fun fact about me, you all might have had senior superlatives, right, in high school. So my senior superlative that I was voted for was most likely to brighten your day. So very much that empathy and leaving somebody better than when I found them, right? Especially in that, whether it's one-to-one or we're doing a community event. So that I would say is something that has felt very ingrained in me, and how I've applied that in practice is really truly that concept of, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I don't need to, put a medical nutrition therapy textbook in front of this client and go through everything I know in this one session. What are the little things that we can work on? But a skill, kind of like what Ellen was saying, a skill that I really struggled with in the beginning was really getting paid for my worth. There was a lot, and I mean a lot of freebies. There was like, sure, I'll come and speak to your baseball team for free. I'll take a Friday night, no problem. And now I realize I can still be empathetic, but I can still be a businesswoman, right? I can still say, this is the cost of the program. I would love to partner with you. This is what that looks like. And let's see how we can work together. So really marrying the two. Empathy doesn't mean that we're giving away all of our services for free. And as Ellen mentioned, it's a learning curve to become more comfortable and confident with it. But the more that we practice it, the more we're getting paid for the time that we've spent in this profession, being the professionals we are.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that. And that's no surprise that that was what you were tagged when you were in high school, right?
Thank you.
I think that's helpful though, when you're a dietitian, you're working with clients, and I think being positive is super helpful. Obviously, we're all taught not to be judgmental, but here's a group of people who have been told to come and receive some nutrition counseling or coaching, depending on what it is. And they feel like they've done something wrong in the past, right? They ate something wrong that got them to this situation. So that's not always the case. There's a lot of outside factors. So having that positivity, I think, is really, really helpful. And I think it helps our profession as well. So thank you for sharing that. All right. I'm feeling like dietitians now, or healthcare professionals, are feeling like, all right, I've got a private practice, or I'm in a traditional job. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm working as a clinical dietitian, but I want to get out into the community. I want to do what these guys are doing. I want to be just as successful as them doing the nutrition community programs. How can they do that? I know that you guys have put some thought into this, and you have created a course for other dietitians. And maybe you can sort of walk us through that. I know that you've spent a lot of time putting this together, and you've kind of given us the framework, or laid it out for us and show us how we can actually implement this into our own community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yes. So in this last year, as I may have mentioned before, the community dietitian framework is our latest baby, right? Where we just put our heads together and said, we love to do this. How can we help other dietitians know where to start? Because there really wasn't necessarily a framework or a blueprint. It was just a lot of trial and error. So we said, how can we help and create a community of dietitians so that we are really all establishing ourselves as those go-to experts, right? So the community dietitian framework, we would love to just give a really quick overview of just the 5 steps that we have put together to really help a dietitian know how to start and finish a community program as early as this month if you wanted to, right? So that first step quickly is building your foundation, right? So we can build the most effective programs when we know exactly who we're serving and what their pain points are. So Ellen and I are both generalist dietitians in our practices, and that was always the $1 million question: to niche or not to niche, right? So it helps us, because we don't necessarily have that niche. We were able to hit a lot of different areas, right? Again, it's senior centers, it's health departments. But if you do have a very specific niche, that's great too, because guess what? Then you know exactly who you need to target. If you're a fertility dietitian, you are specializing in menopause, you know where you need to be and who your potential community partners are.
So you're saying your foundation then is who's your patient population, who's your client.
Correct.
Great.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. And then step 2 is?
Step 2 is that we're collecting and cultivating, right? This is where you're beginning to build those relationships. You're reaching out to those prospective partners, seeing where you can add value into their communities. As Ellen mentioned before, it's a discovery call. It's getting on the phone. Hey, what are your needs? What do you envision for your nutrition programs? And then based on what your potential community partner is, then you're saying, hey, I have all of these great options for you. And providing that menu of services to be transparent with your pricing, what your offerings are, and getting on the same page with what you're going to offer. Ellen, do you want to talk about step 3?
Yeah, step 3 is really just kind of, once you have had that amazing discovery call with your partner, this is where we put on our business hats. This is where we're nailing down the details, and we present our partners with something called a scope of work, which is like, you're going to do this, we're going to do that. Everybody knows what they're responsible for. There's no confusion, there's no miscommunication. It's all clear, and that acts as our contract. And our partners love that, because it just shows our level of being good businesswomen, being professional.
And you have
And then
that scope of practice. Do you have a template for that within your
everything
program?
everything in the program has a template, whether it's
Great.
a guide for like how to hold the discovery call with your client. This is what a proposal looks like. And Elisa didn't mention, but in our proposal, because we want dietitians to get paid, we have laid out hour by hour what goes into building the type of program that whatever you choose, so that everybody can see, one, the amount of work. They think we just show up with pots and pans and food and right. So they can see the work, but more importantly, like someone can go to their budget committee and say, yeah, they are asking for more money than we're used to paying, but look at where the money is going. So it really gives them the tools to then get the programming done that they want to get done. So that is super important. And then after really kind of nailing that down and being very clear with our partner, next we kind of transition to, okay, so what does the event look like? Generally, we do a site visit so that we could check out the tech and the size of the room. We think about what we need to bring, the types of recipes, and all of that also is in the framework. Like no one has to reinvent anything. We want everybody to learn from our experiences about doing, well over 75 presentations at this point. Like we want everybody to just take from our experience and go, I can do this. These ladies are guiding me. They're supporting me. I'm not alone doing this.
I love that. And then I think having that framework and having people be able to understand how to implement this really takes a lot of the heavy lifting off the shoulders and creates action, right? I think that's always the important part is as entrepreneurs, we have 1,000 different ideas, or maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I always have 1,000 different ideas. They're not all going to get lifted out into practice. And so, but having a framework, having something there, I think is really helpful. I appreciate that. So that's amazing that you guys have built that. I'm very appreciative that you've shared that with our audience. I have one last question for both of you. This is something how I always end our conversations. And that is, oftentimes dietitians are not always satisfied with their salaries or their pay. How do you each recommend that dietitians can get paid more, make more money as a dietitian? Maybe Elisa, you can start.
Sure. Ooh, I do like this one, especially in the beginning. I would say becoming a dietitian, I said, wait a minute, I went to school for 5 years and wait, I made more money waiting tables, right? So it's really kind of a shock in the beginning. What I did find helpful was those different revenue streams. So pulling from different areas, but of course too, we want to prevent burnout, right? There's only so many hours in a day. Another thing too, I think when I was negotiating my contract, say in my sales job, for example, is just being open and honest with, and having a conversation, whether it's with HR or your direct report, to say, well, what does this look like at a performance review in a year from now? Can I ask for a rate, or what does that look like? And I think this just goes to show sometimes talking about money can be really uncomfortable, but the more that we do it and the more that we normalize it and the more that we have these conversations, you're not only advocating for yourself, but you're advocating for every other dietitian that is dealing with the same exact situation.
I love the idea of practicing, because it doesn't always come natural no matter what your profession is, right? Even in sales, like it doesn't totally come natural. So having that experience and being able to practice, I think, is great advice. Ellen, any advice?
Yes. My advice is, from our lived experience, is that there's so much opportunity in your local community. We have found in our community, they are looking for credible, evidence-based people to talk about nutrition, and they want that conversation to happen. And as dietitians, if we don't step forward and raise our hands, the conversation is going to go on without us. So I really encourage people who want to diversify their income, but maybe are not looking to develop a huge social media platform or a bigger program that they have subscribers to or memberships to. That's definitely a way to go. But if you want to start small and locally, like just looking to what's in your community and showing up and being present in those spaces is just a great stepping stone to getting started.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really, really valuable. I appreciate that. All right, everybody. How can our audience connect with you? What's the best way to find you?
Yes. So even though, like we said, we are not huge posters on Instagram, we still would love to connect with you guys there. So Instagram, more so, we have created on Facebook. We've created the Community Dietitian Framework Collective. In that collective, we're constantly sharing all sorts of great resources. We go live. A lot of the things that we talk about in our framework, we're just making more discussion inside that collective. So definitely check us out there. And then would this be a great time, Stacey, to share some of the additional resources that we have?
Yeah, and I'll also link to some of the work that she had mentioned in the show notes, so you guys can find it there. But yes, go ahead and offer anything else.
Perfect. So as we have been talking about, the Community Dietitian Framework is eligible for 5 CPEUs. So check that out for sure. We are also providing a 30-day program runway. So this is if you're saying, I need to get started with this ASAP, how can I get started literally today? This is really laying out all of those different steps that we talked through and getting you up and running with a program in 30 days or less. And lastly, we also have a link to our Revenue Reimagined workshop, which is going over some of our top strategies for, again, bringing in some additional revenue streams. So lots of great resources, and we can't wait to connect with you all.
Oh, Elisa, thank you so much. Ellen, thank you so much, both of you, for your
Thank you for having
time,
us.
but also for creating this for other dietitians. I know you've done a lot of the legwork, and I appreciate that. And I know that our audience will be very inspired by this. So thank you very much for your time. And bye for now, everyone.
Bye.